We can all tell the difference between good-looking video and bad-looking video. But what actually makes a video look good or bad, nice or unpleasant, pretty or ugly? Well, today I'm going to discuss 3 main elements that determine how a video looks. Let's get to it. Hello, I'm Noah from Anything Cameras, the channel that focuses on helping you improve your filming and photography. And as I said, we are talking about video today and 3 elements that makes a video look good or bad. Let's jump right into it with the first one, which is lighting. Lighting is extremely vital in photo or video. Well, really all of these are in photo or video, but I'm going to tailor these towards video today. Let's take an extreme example to show you just how much lighting affects how a video looks. I'm sitting in front of a window right now to light myself, but if I go ahead and reach forward and block the window with a curtain, well, I'm in just about complete darkness, and the video, while it may look spooky and cool, you wouldn't watch this video if I were in darkness the whole time and you couldn't see my face that well, would you? So to give some light on myself, I simply open up the curtain, and now the video looks better because I am lit up and you can make out my face, my expressions, my lips, which are actually an important part of understanding speech well. And so with that good lighting that's coming out of the window towards me, the video just looks better. It's that simple. Lighting, however, is perhaps the most complicated of the 3 main elements that makes a video look good or bad. And this may be surprising to some of you. You may think, well, just put some light on the subject, maybe some light on the background to add some visual interest, and I'm good, right? Well, maybe not. For one thing, there is different quality of light. If I were to shine these background lights on my face, well, I would be red and blue, and that just wouldn't look good, and it would mess with the camera's color, and with YouTube's compression, it just wouldn't look good. However, since I have a nice color-accurate light, because it is the sun, the most color-accurate light there is, coming through this window, nice and soft onto my face, you have a nice quality of light lighting me up. It is color-accurate, it is soft, it is a large source, and it doesn't completely remove definition from my face. And position can have an effect on all of this as well. If you have a light really far away, well, for one thing, it's going to be much dimmer on your face by the time the light actually hits you, but also, because it's farther away, it will actually be a harder light instead of a soft light, meaning there will be definition in my face, but it will be very contrasty, almost like the sun, which is also very far away. And if you film indirect sunlight, as you might have seen in our outdoor lighting video in the cards above, well, that just wasn't good. So you want the light nice and close to you. But if it's just in front of your face, well, for one thing, you're going to be blocking the camera, and you would have to turn to the side to talk to the camera if the light were right in front of your face, which wouldn't be good. So you might raise it above the camera or something, which actually is a technique used in some photos and videos that's called butterfly lighting, but you need it to be very high, pretty close, and shining down nicely, similar to the sun, just a lot softer. But this removes a lot of definition in the face, which is why it is only used sometimes. Oftentimes, especially in video, you want a little bit more definition. You want some lighter areas and some slightly darker areas. So, all that to say, lighting is actually quite complicated, and it takes a while to learn, and you need to research and experiment to find good lighting. Even I'm still practicing good lighting, and I've been doing YouTube video work for almost 7 years now. If you want a bit of help with lighting, well, we have a video in the cards above about one light setups with an artificial light, and soon we'll have a video coming out, actually a lesson from our upcoming online course all about YouTube production, which you can see in the cards above as well, all about indoor lighting with natural light, with a window, like I'm using here. But then there's not just lighting the subject. There's also lighting the background, which you may not need to do. You may like a darker background. Because my background is black, I chose to put some colored lights on it to give a little bit of visual interest, and just to make it look a little bit nicer, because otherwise it looks a little dingy and dark, especially considering it's just a pegboard with some painter's tape and this ugly gap here. Those are called practical lights. They're in-shot and out-of-shot practical lights. These ones are out-of-shot. But if you want to learn more about practical lights, we have a whole video that Leaf did right in cards above, and honestly, I think it's a very good video. He did a very good job on it, and it's really a very important topic because without practical lights, well, oftentimes you're just lacking a bit of visual interest. If you look at any scene from any movie, there will be some sort of practical light in it. Even the sun can act as a practical light when it lights whatever is behind you and reflects it back, or if it just shines at the camera directly. That's what causes beautiful bokeh through tree foliage or something of the sort. And yes, bokeh, at least the very stereotypical bokeh we're used to seeing where there are the round orbs of light, is a type of practical light. But I've talked about lighting far enough, the next two will be somewhat shorter. But the second one is color. Because if you have inaccurate color, say your white balance is off, or maybe you did a bad color grade and the skin tones are way off and I look way too red, well then that's just not going to look good either, and you're probably not going to stick around if I leave this color grade on very much longer, so I have to correct it back to the objectively better color grade. Now yes, it is important to have the skin tones in accurate colors so that the person does not look like a green extraterrestrial. However, an incredibly accurate color grade is not always the best to go with. It is almost always okay for the rest of the scene, aside from the subject, especially if they are a human, to be a slightly inaccurate color while still representing the color that they are in real life. What I mean by this is if I were to do my best to change the hues of these lights in the background to be green and yellow, well, maybe the program and my color grading skills wouldn't do too bad a job altering those colors, but just the fact that they are not the colors that the lights actually are shining, whether the lights themselves are accurate or not, means that due to the limitations of current image altering technology, it just won't look natural. And in the realm of color grading, there's also exposure and contrast, which need to look nice. If I made the image super bright and added a whole bunch of contrast, well, as I've said many times, it just wouldn't look good. So you need to balance that exposure and that contrast so that it looks closer to real life, basically. But making color, exposure, and contrast look close to real life is color correction, not color grading. Color grading is the whole creative side of it. And by the way, if you want to see a video about my 10-step process to color correction and color grading, then you can see that in the cards above. With color grading, which is often necessary to make an image look as nice as possible, then you do need to take some creative liberties with the hues and saturations and exposures of different colors and luminance values to make it look how you want it to look and give off a certain feeling to the viewer. For instance, if I were shooting a short film and I were color grading a shot where someone was supposed to be in this magical world full of interesting and beautiful magic things, then I would want to make the color grade a bit brighter and more whimsical looking by altering the colors of an image to look unreal and more perfect than what is in our world, because this character is supposed to be in a magic world where everything is more perfect than our world. But then maybe in the same short film, our character encounters a evil magic wizard and he entraps the character in his dark evil lair, in which case I don't want the color grade, or the lighting for that matter, to be all whimsical and perfect. I want it to be dark and spooky, because our character is supposed to be in this dark spooky place where they are trapped and they are scared. So you have to alter the color grade, and again the lighting, to match the feel. Like with lighting, color grading is also quite complicated and needs quite a lot of practice to get right, and special equipment is perhaps more important and makes your life more easy in color grading than special lighting equipment will make your life. You almost always have access to a source of light whether you buy special video lights or not, because we have the sun in our world, which comes through our windows illuminating our faces, or whatever else you want to be in the shot. But it is not as easy to get good looking color with only what you have, like your cheap laptop that is 7 years old and has a horrible 480p display with terrible color accuracy. Even if you have access to scopes in your editor so that you have information about what the color looks like to a computer and not to your eyes, which by the way are unreliable themselves, as our eyes will actually adjust for certain white balances and tints if they think that it is supposed to be accurate, though it is a time-consuming process, then when you look at the colors on another display, chances are it will be horrible. I've had this happen to me before, even though I don't have that much special equipment. I have a slightly nice monitor, but that is all, and I primarily go off the scopes and, yes, my eyes. But I do it very carefully, and if you would like to learn more about that, then again, you can check out the color grading video in the cards above. But not only a color accurate monitor will make your life easier, a color checker is an extremely helpful item that you can hold up in your shot and zoom in on in post-processing to ensure that your colors are accurate before doing color grading. And then you can use that same clip to check your colors again after color grading to ensure that they are how you want them and not too inaccurate. These also come with white balance cards so that you don't have to try to find a neutral color in the shot and go off of that, with the risk of the neutral color not being as neutral as you thought. And then there's the camera itself, which only has a limited amount of color information. If you only have an 8-bit camera with 420 color sampling, which actually I'm using right now, then you're not going to be able to do a lot of color grading in the editor, and you're only going to be able to do a minor amount, which is what I'm doing here. And if your camera doesn't have access to log or HLG or another flat profile like that, then it will be even harder to color grade. Because with picture profiles or creative styles, whatever they're called on your camera, the camera is compressing and ingraining more of that color information into the image so that it is harder to alter without introducing artifacts and banding and all of this unwanted stuff that makes your image look horrible. I'm currently shooting in HLG, by the way, on a Sony A7riii. But I've rambled about color long enough. Let's talk about the third main thing that controls how a video looks, and that is getting it right in camera. Because although you have all of this flexibility in post with color grading and altering shadows, exposure, highlights, contrast so that you can fix your lighting, even with a super nice camera that shoots raw 444 12-bit color, you are only going to have so much flexibility, and it will only make your life harder to not get it right in camera. And what I mean by this is paying special attention to the lighting especially, but also the camera settings, the picture profile, perhaps even your lens, which if cheap may introduce unwanted color or lighting artifacts into your image. Even with that super nice camera, if your aperture is 5 stops too small, then you're not going to be able to fix the lack of depth of field in your image, or the fact that it's probably 5 stops underexposed, which you just can't bring back. And shutter speed is even harder to fix in post because shutter speed controls motion blur, and if my shutter speed is far too slow, then I'm just going to be a blurry mess. And again, you then have that exposure issue. If your shutter speed is too slow but your other exposure triangle elements are correct, by the way, see that video in the cards above, then you'll have to adjust the exposure, which just never is the ideal thing to do. You want to get it right in camera. And then there's also ISO. You need to keep that low enough so that you don't have digital noise in your image, because though we have powerful, impressive digital noise removing tools in post-processing nowadays, it is not perfect, and there is no replacement for getting your ISO right in camera so that your image isn't super grainy and disgusting to watch. And now we're coming back to lighting. See how all of these elements intertwine and connect to each other? You need them all to get a good looking image. Because if you don't have good lighting to begin with, for example, if I were to just remove the light on me, then I can try to bring back the shadows and illuminate my face, but chances are there is less detail, more noise, and it just doesn't look as good. And then again, there's the position of the light, which you certainly can't change in post-processing, because the shadows and highlights are all but fixed in an image after you take the video. While you can lower the highlights and raise the shadows, or vice versa if you want to, there is no altering the way the shadows fall on your face, or the way the highlights illuminate certain parts of your face, or your subject's face, or your subject themselves. So if you want your video to look nice, be sure to get all of these elements right in your video. And if you want to take it even a step further, consider pre-ordering our online YouTube production quality course, which covers all of these and more, and not only makes your video look nice, but also sound nice, improves your acting, and more. You can check the information video out in the end screen right here.